All right, welcome back to M Live's Dungeon of Doom podcast. I am Ben Raven, joined as always by Corey Woods.
What up, though? How's it going?
What's going on, man? Just a little heads up for people. We're going to talk about the Myles Garrett trade situation. We're going to run through our season review series, position by position, that we did. Corey and I alternated positions. You can find that at mlive.com/Lions. It's always a good opportunity for us to look back at the whole picture and also look ahead a little bit. And then, since the Combine we leave for in 17 or 18 days, we're going to give you our three. Yeah, it's coming up, baby. We're going to give you our three favorite prospects. Yeah, it never does stop. I know. I hit up Corey yesterday. I was like, oh, crap. You should probably book that hotel. It's February 6th. But that's right. Corey's making his NFL Combine debut for us this year. So we're going to give you our three early prospects from each of us that are catching our eyes as we dig deeper and deeper into draft content. We'll have our Combine preview series coming up here much sooner than later. Already time to start planning that out. But Corey, I'm going to turn the floor to you. Myles Garrett, what is your take on the situation? You teased that you've got an interesting take on it, and I want to hear it.
Okay. Everybody knows that, if you're unless you're living under a rock, Myles Garrett requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns earlier this week. And as soon as he said it, they pretty much came out and said that they're not moving him. And, of course, that to me, that's just organization speak. They have to go ahead and say, hey, we're not going to get rid of this guy. But here's my take on it. Everybody's like, the Lions should do it. The Lions should do it. Well, I think the Lions should do it, but it has to make sense. Yeah. And what do I mean by making sense? I've seen some crazy scenarios out there, and I'm not going to go back to it. I'm not talking about that one I saw a couple of months ago that involved Jahmyr Gibbs. That's just lunacy. That's just complete lunacy. And then, if you listen to the same Brown Brothers podcast, Amon-Ra's brother suggested giving up Aiden Hutchinson in that deal. I have the same responses. I have the same responses. Amon-Ra.
I disappeared.
Yeah. I have the same response of Amon-Ra. Bleep no. Hutch not going anywhere. But here's my thing. People are talking about the Lions should not give up any of their first round picks to go get Myles Garrett. And then my whole thing is like this. The Lions have a lot of their core locked up for the next couple of years. I think this is the perfect time right now, if ever, to go make that splash trade. Mm-hmm. Now, some people might say my idea might be a little bit too rich. I would say, and Ben, if you can't trade this pick, Ben, let me know. I'm just being honest. I would say give up 2 firsts and your compensatory third. Or give up 2 firsts. Well, I would first try to float out maybe your first, another first later on down the line, and then a fourth. But if just maybe sweeten the deal, just give him a 2 firsts and the compensatory third you got for AG. Because here's my whole thing.
Yep.
You have a guy that only in his career he's only had 1 season with single digit sacks, and that's his rookie year. Over the past 4 seasons, he's had at least 14 sacks.
It's crazy.
And he's missed like maybe one or 2 games of that.
Mm-hmm.
On top of it, you're not going to draft, and this is no disrespect to anybody in the draft, you're not about to draft a 4-time Pro Bowler. 4-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler this year. So boom, you punt this year's pick. So really, in the third, okay, you got the third because of the AG hire. Cool, punt that one. So really, you're just losing next year's first-round pick, in my opinion. And I think that right now, if you kind of make that type of trade, that really keeps your window open for maybe the next 2 or 3 years. Because now, next year, unless he's a cap cut, you're trotting out a defensive line of Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, DJ Reader, and Aleem McNeil. Yeah. That right there is frightening. So I think that so I mean, now, does that realistically probably happen? No. Yeah. But if we're just going to be talking about the hypotheticals, that's where if I'm playing the armchair GM, that is something I would float out to see if the Browns abide on, because I just think that it just makes sense for where you're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, hey, man, he's not even 30 years old yet, and he already has 100 sacks. He's missed 2 games, he's missed 2 games in the last 4 seasons. He's the reigning defensive player of the year. I mean, dude, I love your trade idea, and yes, you can trade those comp picks, so good thought there. I mean, that's found money, you know what I mean? A 3rd pick this year, a 3rd pick next year. A name that I really enjoy being thrown into these trade scenarios is Hendon Hooker too, because the Browns are in disarray. Deshaun Watson is garbage, and now he's also dealing with a double torn Achilles tendon with the worst contract in pro sports history. They gotta find the worst, yes. They gotta find every quarterback option as possible. So maybe if you can include Hooker and hang on to a comp pick or 2 or something like that, I feel it. Man, yeah, because Garrett, Hutchinson, McNeil, and Reeder, I mean, who are you going to double team? Like, seriously.
That's the thing. It's like, and also, too, Hutch is coming back from injury, so, I'm pretty sure he'll be ready to go by next season, but then just out the gate, with having Garrett out there, I'm not saying he's not going to have to work as hard, but it might be a little less stress on him out the gate.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a cap hit of $19.7 million in 2025, and then a cap hit of $20 million in 2026. They have the cap space to make this move. Obviously, that would tighten things. Hutchinson's either getting paid this offseason or next. That ain't going to be less than $200 million. Just a heads up there. I say
figure it out later.
Matt, you know what? And that's the line I was just going to say, because I was just reading through the ESPN Insider, the best fit for Garrett, the Detroit Lions. And I love this line because I'm usually not a sucker for big trades like this. I'm usually like, nah, they're going to build through the draft. But this is the position I'm targeting in the draft, at least in my hypothetical GM head. And it's like, if you're not selling an arm and a leg and a player, you are at the point. I mean, there's only 3 players through 4 drafts under Brad Holmes that aren't on this roster. Yes. You want to build through the draft. You want that to be your roster building asset right there. And it can continue to do that. But man, I don't know, man, if it only takes 2 first-round picks to get somebody like Myles Garrett, I love this line. Here's the long-awaited line. They could worry about the long-term implications once the confetti is falling. I just love that line. And that really is kind of like the line that made me go, oh, crap. Maybe this is kind of real. Maybe they should look into this. I'm with you. Sitting here right now, my gut is I don't think Brad Holmes makes this move. I really think he values those picks more than we think. And I really think that they are a responsible cap spending team. And, there's Kirby Joseph's coming up. Aiden Hutchinson's coming up. $400+ million to St. Brown, Sewell, and Goff. $97 million to McNeil during the season. Hey, I mean, it's tough. It's tough.
It would make things tough, but I'll tell you this much. What would make things even tougher is if Garrett does indeed gets traded, the Browns are not going to trade him inside the conference. They're sending him into the NFC. So do you want to see him go to somewhere like the Commanders, the Eagles, or God forbid for the Lions in the division to the Packers or the Bears?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not just us falling in love with a sexy name. It's not just insiders falling in love with a sexy name. I mean, pass rush is a main concern around here. When Hutchinson went down, taking out Zadarius Smith's pressures that he got in Cleveland, Hutchinson and McNeil were tied for the team lead in pressures. Hutchinson didn't play past week 5. McNeil missed the final month of the season by more than double anyone else that was on the roster for the entire year. So, this is a need. This is a chance to take a need into the greatest strength in the NFL. On paper, Garrett and Hutchinson, without even considering the other names, holy crap. So, I'll let you finish this topic off.
It's just I just think this is the window. They talk about windows opening and closing. I think this is more so not necessarily saying their Super Bowl window closes if they don't make this move. I just think that this is the window to make this kind of splash, to make you okay, we're getting everybody back healthy. Now, on top of that, we're trotting out probably going to be the most feared defensive line in the league.
I mean,
easily.
Dude, Hutchinson and Garrett on the two sides of each other. It feels like we're playing Madden, even talking about it. But
Yeah,
yeah, man. I mean, Brad
they're just
Holmes,
they're
he's
they're
already worked with Cleveland this year too. So
yeah. It's just I just say that because they have so many guys locked up already, they're just in the position to make this now and then figure it out later. Because like that line, it was just perfect. Once you win the Lombardi, once you're having that or just even let's just take a step back. Once you make that first ever Super Bowl appearance, everything else can get figured out later.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, I usually don't fall into these, and I still don't think it's going to happen, and I still think it's not likely to happen. But, man, if it happened, you would not hear me complaining about it. You would not hear me dogging it. Like, that's the point we're just trying to make here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so, yeah. We're going to move on to our season review series. What we'll do here is I'll say my grade for a position, and I'll save my reasons for that position. You give your thoughts on it. We'll move to the next position. You'll do the same for the ones you handled, and we'll do the same back and forth. And we're going to start with quarterbacks. I gave Jared Goff and Co. an A. I thought about an A-, but like, let's be real. Top 5 MVP candidate. That's unheard of for a Lions quarterback. Like, literally unheard of. Had 2,000-yard receivers. Goff set new career highs in passing touchdowns, completion percentage, passing yards gained per attempt, passer rating, QBR. He also matched his previous best with 4 fourth-quarter comebacks and 4 game-winning drives, and was only 59 yards shy of his season-high yardage mark. I mean, yes, he was not at his best in the playoffs, but like, this is someone who had like 2 or 3 bad games all season. What do you think on that, Corey?
I think it's more than fair. He finished at the top, I believe, in the top 2 or 3 in passing yards. I believe he was number 2 behind Lamar Jackson in passer rating, on top of everything that you've already said. And then just from what I hear, first off, I'm just going to go off of a thought. In that Commanders game, he did not play great, but I think that after he went into a concussion protocol, just because he cleared it, I don't think that he was necessarily all the way there. And then, I heard a couple of whispers he might not have been feeling that great that day. So, I mean, you factor all of that in. It's just like, okay, it's understandable he had the game that he did. But aside from those 2 games, this man set so many franchise and league records this year for his performance. It's just, how do you not give him anything but an A? I mean, hey, sometimes quarterbacks pick the wrong day to have a bad day in office. Hey, Lamar Jackson had one too as well, so it happens, and he's probably going to win MVP.
Yeah, for sure. Lamar should win that tonight. But yeah, I think it's what Goff did this season. Man, he just keeps getting better in Detroit.
Yeah.
And we'll see where that goes with the new offensive coordinator, new coaching staff. It sounds like Bruce Gradkowski, the former 11-year NFL vet, is joining as an offensive assistant. We'll see if he gets a specific title or not, but I love the idea of adding another experienced quarterback. I mean, a backup quarterback for 11 years. That man's ready to coach. So, let's move on to your running back review.
All right, so for the running backs, I gave them an A. Last year, the Gibbs and Montgomery duo was top 3, top 5 in the league in a lot of categories. And then fast forward a year later, they slipped down a little bit as far as the ranking, but they improved statistically. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. When David Montgomery goes down, you have Jahmyr Gibbs step up and become one of the Lions' first 1,400-yard rushers in decades, leads the league in touchdowns in general, and then finishing the 3-way tie for rushing touchdowns. It's like, what can you say about that production? It's arguably the scariest and most deadly running back tandem in the league.
Yeah. No, I really don't have much more to add on that. Gibbs led the league in touchdowns. Gibbs was nearly 1,500 yards. I mean, the rushing attack, it's so important to who they are and what they want to be about. I mean, this was another situation where it was like when Montgomery was healthy and Gibbs was rolling. I mean, this is the most versatile, most well-rounded, most I mean, it's the league's true 1A, 1B running back situation. Like, we're not just saying that to protect someone's feelings or not. No, these are two starting freaking running backs. And I just think with the growth of Gibbs and with Monty remaining Monty, there's nothing else you could have done but an A there, too. We're going to move on to the offensive line. I took this one. I gave them a B plus. The standard is so high here that when the standard falls a little, the grade has to drop a little too.
Yeah.
I think more with the offensive line this year, it was the consistency in pass blocking. Like, it remained like this is still one of, if not the best offensive line in the league. I think Philly's the only team that could say they got a better one than the Lions. But like, the pass protection was choppy. It really was choppy sometimes. I'm not saying it was a season-long issue, but like, Graham Glasgow did not end the year on the highest note. Taylor Decker had some injury problems. You missed Frank Ragnow for a game. So you start to look into the tea leaves like that, and you're like, oh, that's why it was a little inconsistent. No excuses, though. But they did drop a little. I mean, they were ninth in the NFL with 4.7 rushing yards per attempt. Goff was sacked only one more time than last year. But like I said, it was the consistency. I looked at that first game in Minnesota, and the Lions are lucky to have won that game with the way Jonathan Grenard was just getting a pressure every single snap. And so, like, there weren't a ton of, like, disgusting outliers, but I just think the consistency slipped a little. Maybe that was to injury. Maybe that was to some moving pieces. But, like, still, as Brad Holmes said, this offensive line remains the whole thing. And the only reason it's a B plus and not an A minus, to be completely honest with you, is just because the standard is so high, and that standard just lost their footing a little bit on the ice. Let's just say like that. I'm still not low on this group. I loved what I saw from Mahogany. I think Zeitler should be back. I don't think fans should write off Graham Glasgow yet. Had some issues this year, obviously, but like, if you enter camp with Zeitler back, Glasgow and Mahogany fighting for those two offensive guard spots, you're in a good situation.
Can't agree with you more, and I like the way you just said it. Like, kind of like they slipped on some ice a little bit, because it wasn't bad. It just didn't have the feeling of the dominant offensive line we saw last season. It was just that feeling of, okay, this unit is going to come out and pretty much just punch you in the mouth, right, either way it goes. So I think that's more. I think that's more than fair. I think the injuries obviously also had a big part in this hit. So hopefully they're able to kind of get their get some. I want to say get their strength and conditioning better, a little bit better, and hopefully have some more luck on their side.
Yeah, bro. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, this group has been so great about handling injuries. They were still pretty dang good at it this year, too. And I do got to give a shout out. I mean, Sewell, Ragnow, and Zeitler were fantastic this year. Zeitler was one of the best run blocking guards in the league. Frank Ragnow remains a top 3 center, and Sewell is Sewell. I mean, Sewell is got to be the most or the second most valuable offensive lineman in the NFL. They still have that. That's not changing. And also, don't doubt Frank Ragnow. That man is the reason why this remained a B plus.
I'm trying to find the perfect analogy for Frank Ragnow, but this is like, he's like a guy that people are just trying to write off every minute. Yeah. He's retiring, and he's like,
hell no,
I'm good.
I know, man. It's like, ain't time to worry about Frank Ragnow yet. You'll know when it's time to worry about Frank Ragnow. Don't be looking for something to worry about. But let's get into your wide receiver and tight end review while we're here. And just a reminder, you can find all these mlive.com/Lions. We have linked back to all of the reviews Corey and I did. You can find those there.
I went ahead and gave this an A. Now, I just want to explain. Well, of course, I'm going to explain it, but I want to start with LaPorta first, and here's why. Yeah. There's been a big thing about, LaPorta had some slippage this year, and okay, if you really look at it, he didn't. I will say this: the numbers are there. Maybe he sometimes didn't feel as explosive as he did compared to last year, or as quick and agile as last year. I mean, I guess if you want to go there, you could, because he, at times it did like the injury did kind of hobble him at points throughout the season. But from what I read and what we posted, the man made NFL history as the only tight end in his first 2 seasons to have at least 600 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns in each of those seasons.
Yeah.
The man ended with like 700 100 receiving yards and like 8 touchdowns. It's like that's good enough. If that's a down year, hey, I think anybody would sign up for that. So I think his decline was a little bit overstated. But I mean, when you just look at when you go to St. Brown and Jameson Williams, the fact that this duo could have actually been more dynamic had Jameson not been suspended for those couple of games. It didn't affect the Lions, but just the fact that numbers-wise they could have been even more dynamic is kind of scary. And you bring in John Morton, who carries a reputation with working well with wide receivers. It's like, okay, it kind of gets you chomping at the bits off of just with what you've seen this year. Amon-Ra was pretty much steady Eddie, did everything that he does. Another All-Pro-esque year. Jameson Williams, 1,000-yard receiving year. I think they're the first Lions duo to do that since Marvin Jones and Golden Tate.
Yeah, 2017.
I mean,
I know. I agree.
I mean, what more? Only thing I would say was that Tim. I also want to give some love to Tim Patrick too. Yep. Tim Patrick, he came along a little bit slower toward the year, but I would say once him and Goff got that chemistry going, he became a reliable guy in the offense. And also got to give some love to Khalif Raymond. I mean, he missed some weeks for an injury, but still got the nod for the Pro, you know, and as a specialist, All-Pro. I'm sorry, and what can you say?
I know.
The unit performed.
And I agree. And I think this John Morton hire, I mean, yeah, a wide receiver-centric, wide receiver guru type taking over as OC. I mean, the first person I think of is Jameson Williams. It's like, oh, crap. What's Morton going to be able to get out of him? Is there another level to this? There might be another level to this. I can't disagree with you because when I look at Laporta, it's like he had those early season injuries coming out of camp. He hurt his ankle in week 2. And the way he finished the season, he looked like the Sam Laporta we saw in year 1. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's the thing that backs up your A grade there. I wouldn't go lower than an A-. So I'm with you, man. Because, I mean, Laporta, dude, he was bad. I mean, people were like, where's Sam Laporta? Where's Sam Laporta? From that Houston game through the divisional round, the first week of November, second week of November, targeted at least 6 times in every game. Had a 100-yard game. Had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. 5 games with a touchdown in that span. So I just think the way Laporta finished that season should make everyone take a step back and be like, all right, maybe this guy wasn't even near 100% for that like first quarter.
He looked like a whole different player.
And he just wasn't involved. You'd be in the third or fourth quarter and you'd look at Sam Laporta's stats and be like, how the hell Sam Laporta only got 2 targets right now? And then you're like, oh, look at that giant brace on his ankle. Look at this giant brace on his elbow down the stretch, and he was still putting it up. So I think that is someone that is going to benefit from some time off this offseason. I have no doubts in my mind that Sam Laporta is already one of the best tight ends in the league, but will continue to grow and continue to get better. I mean, that dude, Sam Laporta is special. Like, let's not sleep on Sam Laporta.
I mean, he finished among the best tight ends statistically this season on an off year.
Yeah. Yep. All right, I'm going to shift to my defensive line. I had a tough time with this one because Aiden Hutchinson provided quite the nice curve for this group. But I still gave him a B- on the year. And that's mostly due to Hutchinson. That's mostly due to McNeil because, you know, like you said, he had 3.5 sacks more than any other defender who spent the full season in Detroit. You take out Smith's pressures in Cleveland, Hutchinson still led the way. That's great to have that guy, but that's bad. That's just bad. That's where this group kind of failed in the end. They ran out of depth. They ran out of starting level talent, especially on the edge. Once McNeil went down, things got a little tougher on the inside though too. I think Levi and DJ did their best to hold things up. I still need and want to see more from Josh Paschal though. I think that dude's better than he's been in this league, but once again, we're talking about health. We're talking about durability. He had some things pop up. He had some injuries pop up. Just kind of struggled to get it going. And now 2 years into Broderick Martin's career, and there's really nothing to be said for it. I mean, he got passed on the depth chart by practice squad signings, multiple practice squad signings, and that's where I get a little concerned for the future. And I think just to foreshadow my 3 favorite prospects, that's why you're going to hear 2 defensive linemen and / edge rusher names.
Ooh,
this group just
we're
needs
on the
more.
same page probably here.
I bet we are. The pressures weren't there. The sacks weren't there. Shout out Al-Quadin Muhammad for the way he played. I think he might have played himself into a new contract around here. He stepped up, took advantage of it. Bring him back. But, man, the pressures were lacking. The pass rush was lacking. And the run defense slipped, man. I mean, the run defense slipped a little this year. And I think just the injuries to this group, too much to overcome. So I gave him a B-. You take out Hutchinson, it's probably a C.
That's I think that's very, very generous, to be quite honest. And
that's like probably honest. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like how you said you graved them on the curve basically because of Hutchinson. I mean, the injuries were just like Dan Campbell said, the amount of injuries they faced on the defensive side of the ball was just bizarre. But the fact that they just could not get any type of real pressure this season, first off, the fact they went 15-2 and not able to get any type of pressure really on that long stretch towards the end of the season needs to be studied. But I agree with everything you said. I definitely believe that Muhammad has to be back. Some of these guys you might want to part ways with, but some of these guys you got to bring back just for depth reasons. And I mean, this is also a guy that looks like he really wants to be here. When we were going through the locker room cleanups, this is a guy that was broken up. Like the game, we're a day after the game. This guy was so emotional that he couldn't even speak to me. He was just like, I asked him, could he talk? And he was just like, I can't even do it, man. You got a guy that produces like that and shows that he cares that much. Bring him back, reward him.
Yeah, I think he's a good depth piece. I think he does a lot of the things they like too. But Lions ranked looks like it's 23rd or 24th in the league in sacks. And I mean, you take out Hutchinson 7.5, and they are second to last in the NFL right there. So I really do think this can't be a one-man operation. And the thing that concerns me is that Mekhi Wingo and Aleem McNeil were still deeply on crutches without timetables for their return from their late season ACL injuries. Getting DJ Reader a full offseason, he did not participate in camp or the preseason. I mean, that's going to help too, but might be losing Levi. You might. It depends. I mean, if you trade for a Myles Garrett, it's going to be tougher to bring someone like that back. Yeah. And that's why I start to question it, because I think they have the pieces to have a really good defensive line here, man. They really do. I mean, they really do. It was a bizarre year. Bizarre is the right word to do it. So what's next? Let's get into your linebacker review. This one's going to be a little tough too. Just my God, what happened to this group this season?
This one was pretty difficult for me to grade. I gave it a C.
Yeah.
And again, that may not be all the way fair, but again, it's something we both talked about. The pass rushing, the run stopping, it wasn't really there for this group this year. I believe a lot of that had to do with just the amount of injuries they faced. I mean, you pretty much lose Derek Barnes out the gate. You lose Anzalone for some time. You lose on special teams part. You lose Reeves Maben, but also a guy that can kind of be a reserve, on the defensive side. You lose Malcolm Rodriguez, and then so at that point, you pretty much just got Jack Campbell as, and if we're going to wrestling terms, last man standing throughout all games, and you're picking up guys off the street, basically. I mean, you went through your ones and some of your twos. It was a pretty bizarre year. I think that the Lions can definitely improve in a couple of ways, especially when it comes to getting to those mobile quarterbacks and also with their linebackers dropping in coverage. So I thought it was a given what they had to go through as far as the attrition, I felt it was an average job. But I can't really just go. I can't go above average. It wasn't a D or an F. It's just
that's fair.
They steadied the ship.
And it is due to injuries, because Barnes was playing great before he went down, was looking great. Rodriguez was playing great before he went down, and Anzalone is who Anzalone is. But They lost that Bills game because their linebackers were dreadful in coverage that day. And I think that without Anzalone, you see how deficient they are in pass coverage at linebacker. And I think that's fair. Like I said, the run defense slipped a little this year. That was their strength the last two
Yeah.
seasons. It slipped a little. You lose a guy like Barnes, you lose a lot of your functionality. But with this group, man, kind of like the defensive line, you get some guys back, you get some guys healthy, you're gonna be all right.
I mean, they lost so many starters this year. I think if you have at least like 3 or 4 of those guys, me and you are in New Orleans right now.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a good segue into the secondary. Before I say my B- grade, it is important to note that Kirby Joseph led the NFL in interceptions. Brian Branch was awesome. And Carlton Davis was damn good before his injury, too. If you're grading on the back half of the season, that's a C. But, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Amik Robertson's finish of the year, that boosts that grade a little bit there.
Yeah.
I think that really gets lost in the discussion about the secondary is that when they were together, when it was Davis, Robertson, Arnold, Branch, and Joseph, that's a pretty solid group.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
They were picking passes. They were not getting shredded like we've seen in previous years. So, kind of what we said with the entire defense is man, before they lost a bunch of guys, it's looking all right. So, yeah, I got to give love to Kirby Joseph. You led the league in interceptions. I got to give love to Brian Branch, who moved to safety, then moved back to the slot, did a little bit of everything. He's a stud. He's a freaking stud, Pro Bowler for a reason. And with Arnold, man, I think the important thing to note here is I think so much talk about the penalties in the first half of the season. I think he only had 2 over the final couple of months. Really seemed to find his groove and he's still aggressive. He still gave up a couple deep ones, being a little overly aggressive for interceptions. But I think you started to see someone trial by fire learn how the game's called, learn the technique. That's that important work with Townsend. That's that important work with Glenn that's going to pay off. But yeah, it's not great. It's not perfect. But when that group was on the field together, I saw the vision and it was kind of oh man, AG's got his pieces that he's always wanted to have here. Now we'll see how Kelvin Shepard changes things in the future. That's the thing I'm looking to the most this offseason is Melifonwu back. What does that mean for Brian Branch? What does that mean for Amik Robertson? There's a lot of moving parts here. Versatility is their strength, but also you want these guys to have a home base. And right now I'm having a hard time even man, Robertson was pretty solid on the outside, but do they want Branch at safety? Do they want him in the slot? Is Melifonwu back? Because if Melifonwu's back, you can toy around with things a little bit more. So to be determined. I am curious to see how Ennis Rakestraw comes back next year. This hampered ankle, hamstring, just was unable to get on the field. So once again, I like the foundation of what's going on here. But if you don't bring Carlton Davis back, we're right back to where we were the final 6-7 weeks of the season. You need a starting lever corner.
Yeah, I think that's going to be honestly the most important offseason decision or re-signing Carlton Davis. I think that when you're going to get everybody back healthy will be great, but if you're able to just bring him back, I believe he's going to be the X factor of how far this thing goes next year. Yeah. And I think that's even if you were to make a trade for Myles Garrett, you still need a guy like Davis back some way, somehow.
Absolutely. I really do. I think if you can either bring him back or find someone similar to him in that role, then we should feel the way that we felt about this group heading into last season, which is more optimistic than we've been in a while. And we'll touch on special teams real quick because, as our boss Josh said, kickers are people too. I gave special teams an A. Jack Fox was a Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro. Khalif Raymond, second-team All-Pro. Jake Bates set the team record, the 142 points in his debut season. And Hogan Hatton, man, clean. I mean, you work in a first-year kicker, a first-year long snapper. Jack Fox, Dave Phipp has not been shy about wanting to see him be a better placeholder. All those things happened this year. They found their kicker of the future. They found their kicker of the present. They've got the best punter in the league, and they look like they've got a very reliable long snapper who busts his butt and is athletic to get downfield and punt coverage. So, you're talking about punt returns, punt coverage, kick returns. It's an A. Dave Phipp's unit is special. It's one of the biggest assets of this team that gets overlooked too often.
Definitely got to give them an A, and also want to add this part. One big thing that Campbell got criticized for last season was how aggressive he was on fourth downs, and it was just because, like, why didn't they kick it there? Well, we knew that they didn't really have that much faith in the kicking situation.
Yeah.
Regardless of how Bates fared during training camp, they saw something in him, and in those pressure situations, they trusted him to make those kicks, and he made them. So I think that he was a huge asset to their offense, because now you really didn't know whether the Lions were going to go for it sometimes or whether they were going to go ahead and kick the field goal. And they kicked more field goals this year, obviously, with Bates breaking a Jason Hanson record. So,
yeah,
I mean, you gotta give it an A. It was a heck of a performance, and he I don't want to say he's worked himself into one of the best kickers in the league. I'm not going to go into that yet, but he's worked himself into being the best kicking solution for the Lions, and that's, wherever he goes from there, we'll see.
Yep. It's someone who didn't kick in college. It's someone who needed the Michigan Panthers to get here, man, and I just think the more experience, seriously, look at this season. There were a couple days in training camp, I think, before the Lions went to joint practice in New York, it was one of the worst practices I ever laid my eyes on in my entire life. And I was like, I would not be surprised if they had another kicker in here by next week. They stuck with him. He got better. Experience led to improvement. And I just think, I'm with you. He ain't the best kicker in the league. He ain't in that top 5 conversation yet. But, his ceiling is absolutely that high. Absolutely. I'm not trying to blow smoke up where, but the ceiling, the potential is there, because every kick this kid takes, he gets better.
And again, it's just in those game-winning, high-pressure moments. Texans, Green Bay, Minnesota, tough as nails.
Yep. Nope. We're gonna get out of here with our. No, I agree. No, we're done talking about kickers, though. We're done. No. Just kidding, Jake. Don't go back to selling bricks. The Lions need you. Let's do back and forth here. I got you on that one. Our 3 favorite prospects here early in the process, just as we dig into the thing ahead of the combine, coming out of the Senior Bowl. My first guy that I had circled, didn't expect to have him circled because I thought he was seriously injured after the season finale, but Arkansas edge rusher Landon Jackson, 6'7", 280 pounds, powerful long bull rusher, won nearly 12% of his pass rushes, was one of the top, I think the second top rated run defender at his position in college football, was badly hurt in the season finale, but there he was at the Senior Bowl either last weekend or 2 weekends ago. We're time traveling here, baby. Got a strip sack in the Senior Bowl. That's a good sign. Something for the edge, a big, powerful guy, fill that Marcus Davenport kind of mold and that type of style, but give me an SEC edge rusher. Love you something like Brad Holmes loves SEC prospects.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. Guy I'm gonna go with, I believe I told you about him before. Hold on, just make sure I have this pulled up so I can say it correctly. Yeah. We know Brad Holmes loves his Alabama guys.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? Why not go get another one? I have Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, here's the thing. You don't know what's going to happen with Derek Barnes this offseason. So, let's just say things get a little bit too rich for you. You have a guy right here who is nasty in pass rush, solid in run coverage, and he's great in pass coverage, something that the Lions definitely need out of the linebacker position.
Yep.
I think that if you were to get him, you would probably have to maybe reach a little bit and grab him in the first, or trade up early into the second round, because I think he's going to go early in the second round. Probably have to move up. We know that Brad is not shy about going and doing that. There's a guy that he likes, but I just think that if you are to lose out on Derek Barnes, this is a guy that you can bring in that will be a playmaker alongside Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone. And he's one thing about him, he's a nasty tackler. He plays with a mean streak, and I think he would fit that Lions mold.
I remember you talking about him a couple months ago, so nice drawback there. And Kelvin Shepard, former linebackers coach, former linebacker, former SEC linebacker. Maybe if he's got a strong voice at the table, maybe that's a guy for them. I'm sticking with another Alabama guy, interior offensive lineman Tyler Booker. I just texted Nolan Bianchi of the Detroit News because I saw he dropped his first mock draft, and I said, "You son of a!" I was like, "I'm literally about to talk about this guy in a minute." So there you go, 2 Lions beat writers on the same wavelength. This dude is massive, big time, 300 plus, 6'6" or 6'7", like you just said. Brad Holmes got a lot of Alabama draft picks under his watch through 4 drafts here. And I mean, this is obviously depending on the Zeitler situation, depending on how they feel about Glasgow for the future. But this is one of those picks that maybe it's not for this year, maybe it's for next year. But like you said about the linebacker, this might be a first-round guy. This is one of those guys with the build from the program, with the chops that could fly up the board, kind of like your Jackson Powers Johnson, my old sweet Prince Troy from Washington last year. Man, I just think about that offensive line, and it's a perfect segue from talking about the review this year. Never let that group slip again. Never let it slip again. This guy's played a little tackle. He's a guard at heart. He's massive. I see some good pass blocking chops there. Man, I think he's a fit. I like the idea of another offensive lineman. Screw it. Make your greatest strength even stronger.
Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna stick with the I'm gonna stick with the defensive line. I'm going to go with the guy that's actually in their backyard, and I'm gonna get raked over coals for this pick, but I'm explaining why. I think they should go Kenneth Grant from Michigan.
I like it.
I think that's a guy they should look at. Here's why. You just said it right now. You don't really know what's happening with Aleem McNeil right now out the gate. On top of that, again, we don't know what can happen with DJ Reader. Is he coming back? Is he going to be one of those cap cuts? Because we know there's some every year. Yeah. Who knows? But Kenneth Grant, he's nasty. 340 pounds. Amazing pass rusher. I mean, the way he can penetrate through the line and just get to the QB and plays with a high motor. I think that is a guy that you pair with that, you absorb in that lineup.
Yep.
Absorb in this locker room. He can be a guy that could be good to great. So I don't realistically do I think they go and get a defensive line, interior defensive lineman? I would probably say no. But I mean, if you do have to make a decision, or things are depending on how things are looking with Aleem, or how things are looking with maybe Reader, if he's going to keep his contract. I think that is a direction you have to consider, not letting a guy like that slip away from you.
If Grant slips to 28 in the draft, it's kind of a situation where they shouldn't think about it.
Yeah.
And man, people are going to hate us because my third pick, let me caveat this. I'm not talking first round. This is like a second, third round guy, I think. I got another Michigan guy, though. Sorry, folks. I even wrote in my notes. I was like, this is not a blue wall type of deal. Throw green and white in him, and I feel the same way. I believe that. The Michigan edge, Josiah Stewart, just one of those guys when you watch Michigan this year, he pops off the screen. Followers of mlive.com/Lions know I love me an undersized, twitchy pass rusher. I fell in love with Chop Robinson last year. Turned out pretty well. Pat myself on the back there. But, man, I know Josiah does not fit the flavor and the size and the style that the Lions have crafted out of their edge guys and their outside linebacker pass rushers in that Sam role. But man, that is just someone, when he popped when I was watching Michigan games this year, he really freaking popped. And it's one of those players, this is like the red flag that starts going off in my head the time of year, or green flag for Stewart. The quote, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, if he was bigger, he'd be among the top prospects at this position. Then go get him. See if it works. Yeah. Build him out. You saw what James Houston did as a rookie. Maybe you can find that lightning in the bottle again, but not just lightning in the bottle. Maybe you can get it sustained. So, I'm thinking edge. I'm thinking D-line. I'm thinking trenches on both sides of the ball. Stewart, like I said, don't take him in the first round, but if that guy falls, go get him. That's a pass rusher.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot. You can't have too many more of those guys on your team. That's right? For darn sure. But here it's funny you mentioned Stewart, because I have a Stewart on my list for my third guy. Again, and I guess I have to throw the caveat out there too. This is not a day one guy. Maybe not even a day two. Possibly a day 2 or 3, but he's definitely not day 1. I'm going wide receiver Evan Stewart from Oregon. Now, again, not again here. This guy he's not a big guy. He's 5'11", but I know for that wide receiver 3, the Lions are looking for that big body type, that type of guy. But I mean, when you look at Evan Ingram, I think that with the tools that he has, but the way that he played, you might be able to get him on the back end like a steal. This is a guy that is a dangerous weapon. Great hands, exceptional route runner, athleticism is through the roof. I think that is another tool that you can add into this offense that can just make them even more lethal.
Yep.
And you can move him all around the field. I just think that is a guy that you probably just go ahead and look at. Look at his, and I wrote this down. Look at his games at Purdue, Ohio State, and Boise State. He gave their secondary HE double hockey sticks. So just go ahead and check that out. That is my late rounds. If he's there, grab him and figure it out.
Hey, I think wide receiver is going to be among the discussions this year. You know what? This is the type of offense, like, they're not afraid of shape or style or position. Like, if it's a fit and they think they can use you, they're gonna get you. They're gonna use you. So yeah, check out our season review series, MLI.Conscious Lions. There's 3 early favorite prospects for you. I know we kind of did it loosely. We didn't say first round. We didn't say second round. Just 3 guys that are kind of catching our eye as fits as we start this prospect. But hey, we're long as HE double hockey sticks in the tooth right now, so let's get out of here. Dungeon of Doom signing off. We'll see you guys next week. We'll see if there are any more coaching staff hires made. I'm Ben Raven. He's Corey Woods. You make sure to keep on listening.